So we talked about dominant. Now we got creative, normalizing, harmonizing. Let's go to creative next. What does a creative ISTP look like?
So this might be in people's mind a little closer to what they think of when they think of ISTPs. You know, the dominant, I wouldn't be surprised if dominant ISTPs sometimes mistype as judgers, right? Possibly even ISTJs or ESTJs, possibly even NTJs. This is a more creative version that synthesizes information. It's more open, holistic framed. It's more intuitive. There's like a more of an intuitive bent here. And it's this subtype is going to be very curious. They're going to be curious. They're going to have a lot of different interests. They're going to be naturals at design, and their creations will be intriguing to other people. They have a tendency to synthesize all of their information with prior observations and use frameworks in order to figure it all out. And that's what gives them that sort of intuitive bent, because they're patterning based on what they've already seen before. That said, regardless of any other component, they have a toolkit of tricks that's worked in the past. And so they tend to, they're looking for leverage using tricks that they have already determined. So they're field testing ways of getting around things and figuring things out and finding leverage points. And then they continue to add that toolkit to all of the situations they find themselves in. So that's sort of the creative element to it, that they're tinkerers in some way. Like they're always trying to figure things out. And that tinkerer mindset makes it so that they can problem solve in innovative ways, not just apply what they've already learned, but apply what they learned synthesized with new information. And they're very visual. They notice visual and behavioral patterns. They can get really kind of goal focused on visual things, like particularly visual detail, which makes them really good with precision visual work.
Yeah.
And they have a tendency to, they're challenged with communicating clearly their ideas, but they really enjoy stimulating conversation. So they are much better at listening than they are at talking. That said, in their area of expertise, they can become good teachers. They just have to have a situation that allows them some precision in communication, because it's also complex. It's hard to communicate, right? Especially if they're really visually oriented.
Yeah.
So this lends them to becoming exceptional designers, right? Design is the clear path for creative ISTPs. And they are really good at bringing in artistic, systemic, and visual spatial thinking to everything they're doing. So the careers they tend to find themselves in are architecture, computer simulations, game design, fashion, financial modeling, horticulture, industrial product design, landscaping, and anything in the visual or mechanical arts.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at this already. The word nimble came up to mind when you said this. They're very nimble subtype, meaning they can flex and flow probably into all sorts of different roles and different responsibilities that are pulled upon. Like they can probably go and do different things. A jack of all trades, ISTP, which ISTPs already are a little bit jack of all trades. This one probably is the most of all four subtypes. And from that list as well, a lot of those types of jobs are less about going and getting a job 9 to 5. A lot of those are more independent contractor type jobs. Like I'm going to do this for a season or a project or for a period of time. I'm going to come together, do this, and then I'll break apart from that and go do something else. More like free agents.
Yeah.
And so I think that this subtype lends itself, if you're thinking about a career path for you as an ISTJ, think about platforms. Think about maybe like different platforms, whether it's the Uber Uber driver platform where you can drive a vehicle and get paid for the time you put in and you can set your own hours, all the way up to maybe YouTube videos or music on SoundCloud or something. These are platforms that free you to be creative, whatever that is, to make money and resources your career, but you don't have to go and clock in and clock out on a schedule.
Right.
I think all ISTPs are going to lend themselves not to wanting to go clock in and clock out on a schedule. I'd say this subtype the most, though. Doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and Daria even mentions, ideally, if they get a position that's really ideal to the subtype, they're actually going to be able to move around a lot.
Yeah.
They'll be able to move around in their workspace. They'll be able to travel, maybe visiting different, client sites or something to that effect. And there's a need to be in motion, right? There's a need to be able to move around a lot. I think travel not just travel for work, but like actual like global travel is very important for this kind of subtype.
Yeah.
Creative subtypes tend to have a thirst for information. And Dario doesn't mention that thirst for information, but I think it's because ISTPs already have a thirst for information, so it might not be necessarily noteworthy. But I've noticed that all the creative subtypes for all of the personality types, the creative is the one that almost you can't sate their appetite. And the more travel they do, the better their general thought process gets. So I think for ISTPs, the creative subtype needs a couple different things. First, they need to be in nature, right? Nature is really important, whether they're like just doing something as simple as gardening or taking big hikes. And the other one is travel.
Yeah.
Getting around, moving around, being viscerally in these experiences. It's very important for them.
So this subtype's associated with dopamine more than the other subtypes. And let's talk about the attunement of the functions. How are their cognitive functions showing up?
So for creative subtypes, the perceiving function, in this case, it would be extroverted sensing or sensation. That's going to have the analytic bent, meaning that that's going to be the more focused, the more assertive, the more pushing out energy. And the judging function, in this case, introverted thinking or accuracy, that's going to be the more holistic. It's going to be a little bit more diffused, a little bit more open, sees a bigger territory, and not as insistent. And that makes sense, right? Like there's going to be a lot more of a desire to be creative and expressive with the perceiving function than there is going to be a sense of this is how things have to happen with the judging function.
Yeah.